What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at St. Vitus for the Today is the Day show, and we are here with Khemmis. Welcome back to New York, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Hey, cheers, man.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
After you guys played with Enslaved, I was pretty damn impressed with what you guys are doing. Your latest record, which is Desolation, which is scheduled to come out January 22nd.
Yeah.
Of
June 22nd.
June 22nd.
Yeah.
That was my mistake.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
Yeah, it's because it's so humid out that I wish it was
Yeah,
Jan-
you're wishing for the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how was the recording for it been?
Man, it was really good. We spent more time in the studio on this record than we had for any previous record. We were at Flatline Audio with Dave Otero for roughly a month. So, we got to really dial in the tones, get the good performances. It also gave Dave a chance to really, crack the whip, hold our noses to the grindstone, and get the best out of us. But it was a really good time.
Absolutely.
We were also a lot more explicit about how we wanted the mix to sound and stuff this time, and we had extra time to really kind of have that dialed in. So I think we're really happy with the final product, just overall.
Now, being that this is the third record in the Khemmis discography, was this meant to kind of pick up after Hunted and Absolution, or was this record intended to kind of stand out in its own right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely its own chapter in the story of Khemmis, right? We don't ever come at an album thinking, oh, it's, a continuation of what we've already done, or it's trying to fill out any sort of thematic gap. It's that it's a snapshot of who we are as a group of four musicians, at a given moment, and it's a representation of where we are, in our heads, in our hearts, and in our songwriting.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different record for us than the last ones, and we've tried to do that with each album. So I don't think it's a continuation necessarily, but it still sounds like us.
Well, you guys prefer to experiment, right?
I mean, we prefer to keep it fresh, I think, is a better way to put it. Like Ben said, to just express what we're into in the moment, what we're feeling as individuals and as a band. So, yeah, I mean, experiment, I don't know if that's the right word, but
I think it just happens naturally, really. We want to write songs that are interesting for us to play. And so, how that develops just kind of comes with what's happening in our lives and what we're into at the time. So.
That's an interesting way. So you kind of in a way answered my next question, because when you are recording new music, do you kind of go into the studio with a preconceived idea, or do you kind of like to mess around and see where it kind of leads to?
We work on stuff for months and months and months before we ever hit the studio. Everything's very solidly done.
Okay, so
Yeah. By the time we get into the studio, we've already recorded the album once. We do full pre-production demos for the entire thing, so that we know, how everything fits together. We've got everything worked out. There may be some degree of, improv with, maybe changing up a few drum fills or, changing a few licks in a guitar solo, but the songs are, almost essentially totally locked in at that point.
Okay.
and also how we want our instruments to sound. Our tone is almost, we know how we want to sound. With the bass is maybe a little bit of an exception. We usually screw around with the bass tone every time we're in the studio and do something different, which is subtle, but it's cool for me. It's fun. But otherwise, yeah, we know how it's going to go. The songs are written. We know how it's going to sound. And, so we're, like Zach said, we're prepared when we go in.
Yeah, so it's been kind of the same methodology for all three albums?
We've gotten even more disciplined about prepping for the studio. The first record, we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves
We had
into.
no idea what we were doing in the first record. Yeah.
So, and
I
then
think that's the case for a lot,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. And then for Hunted, we did also pre-pro for the whole album, but not as extensively with details. And I think we agonized over the details a little bit more this time. And we tried to tighten up the songwriting as much as possible before we went into the studio. And even most of the guitar solos were written.
Yeah, this is the first time where I had, totally written out every guitar solo before we went in. Now, there are a few times where Dave said, all right, that's good. Now, take a sip of whiskey and just let it rip and just see what happens. But most of the time, of all the solos on the album, 98% of them are how they were, written before we went into the studio.
I mean, there's 100 solos and one is different.
Yeah. There's a lot of lead work on this album.
Yeah. It's crazy. Now, one question I was curious about is because the last time you came here, you were with Enslaved, Wolves in the Throne Room, and Merker. I never knew how to pronounce that.
We don't
right.
either.
That's how we say it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. I'm not the only
And
one.
we said it in front of them like that a lot, and no one corrected us,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
must be okay.
I think it's actually a little different, but it's.
I think it's Mercur.
And she never said like Merc you or anything when we said that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But now you're on tour with Today Is the Day, which I think is like a very different lineup. And so, in terms of, have you guys, kind of like two questions in one, but did you kind of have to like adjust your set list depending on who you tour with? And how different of like an audience are you playing in front of for this tour?
I mean, in terms of the set list, we always want to play to our strengths. We're not interested in going out there and trying to guess what other people want to hear. We want to give everyone the strongest representation of who we are as a band, and so that's going to involve playing the songs that we find most compelling to play live. So, of the songs we played with Enslaved, we'll actually do all of them again tonight and some other ones. And then, for your second question, we never really know, what the crowd's going to be like. Like with Enslaved, even on that tour, some nights it might be a particularly black metal kind of crowd. Some nights it might be a very proggy kind of crowd, or people that were, maybe a lot of people there to see us. And again, we just try to give the best show that we can give, really put it all out there for everyone. And I think we find that tends to work best for us, and people get what we're going for. They can sort of feel that authenticity.
Absolutely.
It's kind of, it would be kind of like not taking advantage of the situation if we catered our set to the other bands we're playing with, because in many ways, we not necessarily want to stand out, but we don't want people to like us because we're playing all our fast songs. We want them to like everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
So regardless of, like Ben said, regardless of who we're playing with, we just want to present Khemmis what we think is a picture of us front to back. And I think it's actually good to stand out. In our case, going on tour with black metal bands, to stand out a little bit. And I think it's exciting for audience. Some people hate it, but I personally like mixed packages like that.
But you can't play to the same people every time.
Right, exactly. And yeah, right. You're not. We already know that some people who like doom style music like us, but we don't know so much about the black metal crowd. So it was to our advantage to go out there and not sound like them.
Well, and we're pretty used to playing with like really mixed bills, because like in Denver, I don't think they focused so much on like presenting a show that's like a doom show or like a black metal show. Like
we don't have enough bands of any style.
yeah,
to do
exactly.
that.
Everybody's doing such different stuff that we like really commonly play on very mixed bills, even if it's like a bigger tour that comes through and there's local support. So it's not like something that we're not used to. We're kind of used to being a little bit different than most of the bands we're playing with, and I think we enjoy that.
Yeah.
It gives you a chance to stand out.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yep. I'm going to put that in the quote. That's the most beautiful. Now, you guys have been really good, because every question kind of led into the next one I had in mind. But the Denver, Colorado scene, which is where you guys are from. So it's fair to say, is there like a happening scene that you guys kind of cut your teeth in very easily?
Well, I wouldn't say there was a happening scene that we cut our teeth in. Right now, the scene is blowing up, and it's awesome. When we were starting out, a lot of the bands that are now getting a lot of attention were also starting out. Primitive Man was in pretty early stages. Blood Incantation, Spectral Voice, all of these bands. So we all sort of came up together at a time when historically there hadn't been a lot in Denver. Denver used to be a city that tours drove by. But now we're very fortunate to be part of this collection of very diverse musicians playing all sorts of stuff. You got Primitive Man playing, I don't know, Apocalypse
Yeah, they
metal.
just came here.
Yeah. Spectral Voice, Of Feather and Bone and Wayfarer both just put out new albums on Profound Lore.
Oh my God, Wayfarer, that new Wayfarer record.
So good, right? So good.
It's like Western black metal.
Oh, it's so good.
Love it.
Yeah.
I think they'd be glad to hear you say that.
Yeah,
I think
that's probably what
they
Listen
would,
up, Wayfarer.
They'd like that representation.
Yeah, it's like the most amazing. Sorry, I got off track.
No.
You mentioned that.
But to your point, Denver right now is having this moment, and it's really exciting to be there. I mean, it's palpable, right? That bands have for years been pushing each other to find their authentic voices, regardless of what it is, to bring in whatever kinds of influences, and it has allowed us to be this band. Whereas in other cities, we might have been pushed to be sort of more within the genre boundaries of doom or trad metal or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I thought that your music was very diverse, and I thought it could appeal to people who listen to folk metal, doom metal,
Sure.
black metal, and all types. And I think that can allow you to be on different types of tours, whether
Totally.
it's Today Is the Day or
Yeah.
or Enslaved and so on
Sure,
and so forth.
sure.
That's exciting for us going back to the album too, just because like we think that we can, moving forward, kind of have a different sound for every album because it doesn't have to be one thing. So like we're looking forward to having like different tours that we could be on, different albums. It's kind of natural, I think, to be in Denver and be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time. This is going to be an awesome show tonight. Is there anything that you guys are allowed, like in terms of up-and-coming tours? The new record's scheduled for June 22nd.
We are doing 3 very special release shows where we will play the new album top to bottom. We're doing June 29th in Los Angeles at the Echoplex, July 1st in Chicago at Reggie's, and July 7th in Denver at High Dive. Those are going to be the only 3 shows in North America where we play the album from start to finish, unless somebody wants to pay us a lot of money, and then we'll do it more.
What if I pay you to play all 3 albums top to bottom?
Oh my God, we need a nap somewhere in there,
break.
dude. That's a long time.
Intermission?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they can go get popcorn.
Sounds fun. Yeah, it's like a silent movie play between.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Or like you guys, then another band, then you guys, and then another band.
I don't know if I want to see me that much. I don't know if anybody, we'll do like 3 nights. Each night we'll do an album.
Okay.
We'll do something like that. So yeah, we're doing those. We've got Migration Fest in Pittsburgh, which is put on by 20 Bucks Spin and Gilead Media. We're doing that in July, and then 2 days later we fly up to Montreal and we play Heavy Montreal with who's playing on our day? Gojira,
Sevenfold.
Sleep, Avenged Sevenfold. It's a whole thing.
That's
but also
awesome.
like Power Trip and like a lot of bands
Yeah.
that are.
We're gonna go a day early and catch Emperor and stuff too.
and Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Oh, can't go wrong with Zombie. Yeah. But guys, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, right on,
I'm
man.
Looking forward to the show tonight. Everybody, we are here with Khemmis. Be sure to pick up their newest record coming June 22nd. Be sure to pick up Desolation and catch them on their up-and-coming tours that they just mentioned. I'm not going to repeat all of it, but we'll see you next time on Heavy New York.